Welcome to the Ackerman Alliance Daily Show, your daily dose of things you need to know, and probably some things you don't. Okay, as you're going to find out, the shows have had to stop live streaming, so I've had to record and upload. Please share, please like, please subscribe, and please join. Follow for more fun. Somebody tells you you're not good enough, you're not capable enough, you're not educated enough, you're not smart enough. You look back at them and say, I can do anything that I put my mind to. And nothing you say will deter me from winning or deter me from helping others win. If that sounds like you, reach out. Let's try to work as hard on pushing each other up as we are at criticizing and slandering each other to death. Good luck out there. If I sent you a direct link to this video, that means at some point we've crossed paths or we've met. Maybe we work together. I'm hoping you can help me blow this up. Not literally blow it up, but, make it bigger. Who am I? Well, let's just say I'm your typical American kid. If typical means growing up insecure, stuttering through sentences, dodging a critical mom, and watching dad hide in the shadows. High school kicked me out 2 weeks early for leaving campus with my girlfriend. One of these girls is her. And the closest I got to college was throwing a touchdown pass to my buddy in the 5th grade. I was lucky to spend a lot of time with my grandparents. They were great. Learned to use my words to navigate life, just like Grandpa said. Make friends, make money. I experimented, took things apart. Guess I learned the old-fashioned way by just making mistakes. Hey! I've sold wine to grocery stores, driven heavy equipment, caddied on the PGA Tour, was in a band, even went to LA in my early 20s to give acting a shot. Pretty sure I can fly anything with wings. Worked in sales most of my life, got recruited to Wall Street, and one day I even rang the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange. It's been a crazy ride. Married for 18 years, married for 18 months, divorced twice, and both of the women are in this picture. And I'll guarantee you, divorce during the Trump years was not fun. Lawfare sucks. But thank goodness I had a woman come to my rescue. And she's in this picture. Maybe it's just me, but I truly believe that humans can accomplish anything if they just try without the fear of failing. Most people stop before they even start. If you believe in leading by example, doing what's right by standing up for those who need the help, but most importantly, if you feel like you have the skills to spot a fraud, then this might be for you. This is a place where action speaks louder than words, where leadership isn't about titles or education. It's about showing up, execution, and understanding that no matter how experienced you are, you always have something to learn. Life's challenges only postpone your dreams. They don't erase them. Welcome to the Ackerman Alliance. If you're a current or retired financial advisor, financial consultant, registered investment advisor, or old industry wholesaler, look me up. Join the show. It's as easy as clicking a link. There's bold wholesalers and there's old wholesalers, but there's no bold old wholesalers.
This is not a solicitation for business, nor is it an offer for investments. If you are a seasoned investment professional with a passion for aviation, golf, and excellence, we need to talk. Know someone who fits? Feel free to pass it along.
Welcome to Ackerman Daily. It's February 18th, and we're having to go a little bit more down the path of record and post. I'm having issues with the live stream. I'm having issues with the internet at my location. I don't know if those issues are planned, if they are specifically designed to keep me from streaming and posting and talking about this stuff, but I've got my beliefs. It is what it is. So for now, until I can get things figured out or figure out why this stream is being interrupted, I guess we'll just have to record. Last night's episode, which I recorded over the course of about an hour and a half, great episode, didn't have any audio. The audio didn't work. So it was a great episode of me looking like that. We got to figure this out. I'm going to walk you through a few scenarios today that I did last night, which kind of sucks because I was already moved on and I had a new topic for today. But we got to get this out. We got to discuss this. It's very important that we not, God, the new Corvette looks so much like a Ferrari. It's weird. I'm really disappointed that all the families I'm sure, well, it's very easy for someone to feel like you're the one on the island, like you're the only one who's been canceled, or you're the only one who's dealing with a particular issue. And I think it's happening everywhere. I think families are divided everywhere. You know, the difference between a liberal and a conservative, or a Democrat and a Republican, I don't like using those words or those classifications for what the differences are, because I think the differences are so much more than just like a belief in social systems and, you know, the way people should be treated. I think a lot of people have this understanding that Republicans are all Christians and they're all just, you know, pushing this message of Jesus, and you have to do this and live this way because Jesus says so. And that's not the case at all. It's not the case. In fact, like that push, that insistent, like, live your life according to Jesus and God and blah, 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 blah. That is what pushed me away from thinking I was a Republican. In fact, that was the first thing I thought about when I was coming up with who I was going to vote for when I turned 18 was, I'm not a Republican. I don't really feel like a Republican. So what am I? That's when I kind of started to put those pieces together. And so it's not that. Like, I think there are a lot of Christian Republicans. I do. That's a big group. It's clear that's why they were attacked during COVID, not allowing them to gather with one another and, I don't know, plan and organize. Who knows? But it goes deeper than that. And that's what I want to talk a little bit about today. I got exposed to a lot of that. Now, I questioned a lot of it. I pushed back. People didn't like that. You know, my grandfather, if you asked a question about something with my grandfather, he did not like it. He just, you know, you just didn't. You just learned not to ask questions. You just learned, like, okay, whatever, your belief, your thing, you got it, you take it, you go, guy. You go, guy, you go. Okay, go. Oh, good one. Good job. Good job. It looks just like, oh, now I see the rounder nose. Okay. So he's a border collie blue heeler. God, they look so similar.
I know, right? She just doesn't have quite.
I get a lot of side eyes walking around this park with Lester off leash. Holy smokes, Les, look at the birds. There's so many. Each. Over here. Right there. He doesn't see it. Yeah. Yeah. Right there. There you go. Yeah. Are we gonna figure out all this shit? Does anybody want to figure out all this shit? Do we want to find some common ground? My guess is there is a bunch of people who are extraordinarily upset that Trump and his coalition of forces are finding so much fraud and deception and lies. And because I would be upset. I would be completely upset if that happened to me. I mean, beyond upset. You're gonna go for another swim. I'm starting to get a little concerned because he turned 6 in a few months. And he's starting to walk like with a limp every once in a while, and he gets up super slow, and you can tell he's just kind of getting a little more sore, which I totally understand. The older we get, the harder it is to take the heat. All right, I'm gonna go find the Frisbee. Okay, fine, bring your stick. Why don't we leave the stick? Not gonna leave the stick, huh? This is how I know when I haven't taken him for enough runs or spent the required amount of time with him. He basically just stops doing what I want to do or what I'm doing, which is good. It's a survival. Oh, okay, I'm not falling for it. I'm not falling for the banana in the tailpipe. Nope, not gonna fall for that. Gonna fall for the banana in the tailpipe. We gotta go. We gotta go. Leave it. Leave it. Leave it.
I know.
Wait. Wait. Hey! Hey! Lester! Come here. Sit down. Sit down. I know you're upset, but you don't just do what you want. You want to go back on the leash? To the car. To the car. Get it. Wow. He really did. That's a perfect example. That's an example of dogs, when they get what they want, they're super easy. But when they don't get what they want, they act out just like people. I don't even remember exactly where I was, but yeah, Republicans and Democrats. So this girl that I knew in high school, she was really the only person throughout my history of having friends for the last 40 years, the only person that overtly made people aware of her political stances. You know, she went into the Peace Corps. She has a mouth like you can't believe. You know, and she's smart. She is. She's fun to banter with. She's, you know, I really valued friendships with all women and men, you know, who had the ability to have, you know, a debate or a critical, you know, a conversation using your critical thinking skills and, you know, arguing your point or your stance or your beliefs, you know, and I was still forming my beliefs when I was in high school. We all are. You know, it's you're figuring stuff out. That's why I'm really happy that our generation didn't have the propaganda and the marketing campaigns to drum up support and empathy and virtue and all of the things that people feel so passionate about today. You know, we had to kind of figure it out for ourselves. You had TV and you had movies and you had political elections and you had all of the input still, but it wasn't nearly on the level that it's at now. Kids are indoctrinated. Kids are people actively try to persuade a way of thinking into a kid before they've had time to just absorb the world around them and form their own political, their own political beliefs, their values, their morals, all of it.
Great example. The house that my wife and I and my kids moved into right after I had built my music studio. I built my wife 2 new bathrooms, remodeled the basement, remodeled the whole house for her, like gave her everything she wanted. And then I built a soundproofed room in my garage where we could play music as loud as we wanted, as late as we wanted, and nobody would hear it. Not too far after having that done, my wife again said, we need to move. I want a new house. And her stepmom or ex-stepmom went and found us a really expensive house. And it was really difficult because I didn't want to sell my house. I just got done remodeling it. The mortgage was like $1,200 and it was great and we could save a ton of money, but I lost that argument. So we upped our mortgage, ended up jumping to a $3,500 a month mortgage, and we moved into this neighborhood that was great. We moved into a house that I ended up loving. We had neighbors who were retired school teachers, or one retired school teacher and one retired school football coach. You know, these people that I called family at one point. I did. Like, I considered these people as close to me as I would consider my parents. Our son met them first. Turns out there was an argument between his mother and I, and he kind of slipped out the back door, and it was the summer, and he snuck up there and said hi to him and said, hey, and introduced himself to the neighbors. And he was really good at doing that. He was an outgoing, charismatic kid. Well, at first my wife was like, are you sure? You know, you just can't trust people. They could be pedophiles. They could be this. They could be that. And I considered myself a pretty good judge of character. And I was just like, no, that's not at all what's happening. They're good people. And I still believe that they are, for the most part, good people. But here's what happened. We didn't start with politics. We moved in 2009. Okay? Everything was fine. Everything was just peachy. You know, I was working, I was constantly helping them, and, you know, he was helping me, and the kids were going up to visit, and, you know, the kids loved them. They were great. They were fun people. You know, we drink Coors Lights out on the patio and yada, yada. Well, fast forward into, you know, getting into 13, 14, 15, which is when my wife, like, suddenly decided she was going to move out. When I started the business with a longtime family friend. And then things just got kind of weird. And then, you know, the Trump election happened. And I'd always told them that, like, you know, when Trump first started to even get the nomination, I would just talk to them like, hey, you can't, like, count him out. I mean, he probably is going to know what he's doing. Let's just give him an opportunity. You know, and they just right out of the gates were like, what are you even talking about? That is not even, are you kidding me? And I was just blown away, like, what? Well, not too long after that, my wife was gone, trying to crush me in a divorce and do things that were obviously not above board. And it tweaked things a little bit. It's like they supported me. They did. They wrote me a declaration that, you know, pretty much nullified her accusations of any domestic violence or anything, because they knew us. They knew what was going on the whole time we lived there. I'm an open book. I'm full transparent. But what was interesting, let's finish this upstairs.
So, what was very interesting about all that was the wife, and I'm not going to name names, like I said in the get-go. I'm not going to specifically call anybody out here, but the wife, who I thought I had a great relationship with, I mean, I literally treated them like parents, like family, always super generous. You know, would have them over. I mean, it was a pretty mutual, family-esque type relationship. Well, when this happened, my wife had put in an emergency restraining order situation where, and I don't know if this was her friends or maybe this is just a tactic. I think it's just a tactic of how this works. This emergency restraining order was, saying I was violent and a drug addict and, mean to the animals, and that I took the animals away from the kids, like really all of this nefarious shit. And before she got home, my buddy, my neighbor, him and I had already kind of written a declaration. He had helped me draft a response to this emergency restraining order that was going to go to court. I mean, it was just ludicrous how this was being handled. And so when she got home, when his wife got home and saw that we'd already written this, you could tell that she was like visibly like torn, like taken back, like, what are you? And I'm kind of thinking like, what's the problem here? Is there a problem with defending this? Like, you saw this. Why do you have a problem saying what you know is true? And I remember this like it was yesterday. She took the declaration that we wrote and she goes, I need a few minutes. And, she kind of takes off and my neighbor and I are, I'm looking at him kind of like, what's going on? And he's just like, don't worry. She goes out back. She stands in the street. She's got her hand on her head. I mean, she just looks like she's just like torn, struggling with a decision that she has to make. Well, long and short of it was, they wrote a declaration. She tweaked it. She made it a little less strong, but it was still strong enough to do what it had to do, which was just to have the judge say, no, there's no TRO, there's no anything. But they attempted. But I remember that, her hesitating on that was, why would she hesitate? Why would she hesitate and not want to defend me? Well, the story goes on. So that ends up wrapping up. I get divorced. I keep living there. It's just me and the boys now, with the neighbors and time's going on. They're helping me. He's helping me at the business a little bit. I mean, I'm working so many hours right now. It's unreal. I mean, it's unreal how many hours I'm putting in at this time. I'm just surviving, just one foot in front of the other. All the money was just taken. I thought, this is my first experience in court, it was my first divorce. I thought you had to tell the truth in court and be totally, forthcoming and everything was legitimate. Well, no, I found out real quickly it's not. And we get through our divorce. And I'm going to kind of wrap this up like quickly, but I ended up getting remarried, as a lot of people know. Went, on a work trip, went with a client on a work trip and just fell in love. Like literally met a person who I thought was my soulmate. Literally, it was that feeling that you get. You're like, oh my God, I have just met somebody who this is destiny. We were meant to be right here. It took us this long to just, it was the wildest ride ever. And she ended up eventually moving in, and the neighbors liked her. I mean, it wasn't like peas and carrots, but they liked her and thought everything was fine. Well, as things progressed, the business ended up getting grenaded. I mean, it was essentially grenaded when my partner, the guy who I'd known my entire life, basically ended up being a fraud. I mean, he was just, I thought I was getting into business with somebody who I could learn from, who, you know, has owned businesses, who, you know, manages bands, who's, you know, on the surface looks like this, like, put together, wealthy, strategic, interesting guy, but he's not. He's just faking it and is massively narcissistic and does not make good decisions and is surrounded. This is the kicker. He is surrounded by people who are just ripping our business off. He's surrounded by toxic people that work for him or around him that are now, you know, tasked to come work with me to get things accomplished, and they're just robbing us blind. Like charging for driving from Seattle to Tacoma, like $500. I mean, just the craziest stuff, the kind of stuff we're hearing, like the kind of stuff we're hearing about right now with USAID and a lot of the fraud that's taking place, you know, within our federal government. That's the way I felt like we were being treated. Like this poor investor who they brought on board to just write the big check for this business. It was just kind of expected that he was just going to pick up the tab for everything. Huh? So, no, that's not going to happen. Not going to happen. So, long and short of it, you know, we really gave that business a run. I mean, I had good people. I had caddies from, you know, the local golf course. We had caddies who would come in and do packaging. We had volunteers. I mean, we had some good people. But a lot of these people that we thought were trying to help us, that were connected to me through my partner, through my friend that I'd known for years, I had no idea that they were just out to get him or take us down or let us pay for all the R&D, me do all the work, and then they're just going to take the business. And I'll get into more of those details on another call or on another show when I talk about that stuff. But that is kind of where that led when that failed, when that business failed, when it was like, okay, and I stuck around to like make sure it all got, you know, wound down properly and nobody was left hanging and, you know, really tried to save kind of my reputation in the area because I don't get somebody involved in something if I don't believe it's going to work. And I put my freaking all into that. All of me and then some. Went through the divorce, you know, I mean, just so much chaos came from that. My son went from starting quarterback, and I think he was in 6th grade, maybe it was 7th, I don't remember exactly. Starting quarterback, I'm the offensive coordinator. The head coach and I are friends. It's like 1 second that's going on. And then the next second, I'm being canceled, taken out, treated like crap. He loses his starting quarterback job. His friends, like nobody even acknowledges with him what's even going on. Like the whole thing with the cancellation is everybody just has to pretend like, oh, what? No, nobody knows what's going on. Like, oh yeah, he's just out of the picture now. We just pretend like that didn't happen. Nobody had the guts to sit down with a kid and say, hey, what's happening to your dad right now? You know, they don't know. They're like, they just went from like, oh my God, my dad's coaching me and I don't know what's happening, but I mean, I don't want to get too into that. I don't really want to talk about my kids here, but that's damaging. It was severely damaging. And what essentially happened from there, fast forward kind of through, you know, the marriage, when the business, you know, kind of went south real quick and it was looking like that was over, I had to figure something out because my wife hadn't, you know, my now new wife, who I just got remarried in 2018 after signing a divorce in late 2017. She didn't have a job yet. I was paying her bills, and, you know, we were trying to put things together for our new idea and concept, and, you know, to kind of run things with the industry that she was in. And I just decided in 2019, when my grandma had died, my mom had been killed, her estate had been taken, my grandma now died. Didn't know at the time, but this is when my aunt basically started to, she's like, nope, we can't help you. We can't help you. The estate is not, you know, the estate has to be very careful. So they made sure that I wasn't going to be able to save my house. My sister and her, I'm sure, colluded together. I was just suddenly labeled this horrible, vile person. Literally. And for what? I have some people who like saw me go through this. You know, one of our early investors in the company, she would come in periodically and check on things, and I've kind of formed kind of a good, you know, relationship with her. I really value her input and who she is, and we've had great conversations. But once it was there, and once I once I said I was going to sell the house, once that was on the table, I guess the neighbors figured that they weren't going to have my kids around on a regular basis anymore. And that was when the neighbor's wife just turned me off. Just started, you know, just kind of disregarding me, you know, any conversations I'd have with her she would be kind of checked out and just kind of slanted towards condescension. I didn't understand it. I mean, they came to my wedding. I gave them like the biggest room at the house we rented, like I would give parents, like treated them like they were my parents. And really, they were just ready to cancel me, just ready for me to disappear. But they weren't ready to lose my son. What they were trying to do was to indoctrinate him into a way of thinking, talking to him about how his mother votes and how I vote. And it turned into this like political programming operation, of which I addressed early on. I said, hey, I just kind of believe, don't you think it's good if we just like keep politics out of personal relationships, especially with minors? Like with kids that are under 18, I just think it's better that you don't train or educate or give somebody the impression that a certain way to believe, you know, a certain political belief or mantra is appropriate. And the first time I addressed it, I remember getting an answer like, oh, yeah, absolutely. No, don't worry. Well, you know, couple years go by, year and a half, or no, actually about a year goes by. And I had bought a pressure washer and some other tools and just essentially gave it to this, you know, these neighbors. Like, yeah, you hold on to it, you know, and he was using the pressure washer to make money around town. And I borrowed the pressure washer from him. This was probably early 2020. And pressure washer was just destroyed. And then I heard from my son again. He said, Dad, I was talking to the neighbors and they were really saying some stuff about, you know, and he was telling me stories about how he was kind of giving him the political speech again, talking about how things are and who you should vote for and who this and who that. And I was so bummed. I was like, man, is that like, were we really never friends? Was there really nothing there ever? Was that just a false? I mean, they were both drinkers. She was a heavy drinker, which, you know, look, when you come from a home that has a heavy drinking mother, you might have some predetermined like feelings. I realized that. I could totally have that ability. I could totally possess that. I really try not to. And
there was one time where, my kids are 5 years apart. The oldest, which was their favorite, and the youngest, which was not their favorite, they showed favoritism. When the kids were at an age like, the kind of favoritism where one night we were over there and my oldest goes into the fridge and grabs some strawberries and whipped cream and he's got this big bowl of stuff and he's eating it in the basement. And my youngest son, who remember at this point is like 5, he wants some strawberries and whipped cream too. He's a kid, he's over there. And she is just kind of piss drunk at this point of the night. And she goes, "No, bro, we told you only on such and such a day." And my oldest is looking at, his little brother like, "Yeah, screw you." And I'm thinking, oh my God, you're totally just like going to give them the impression that he can do whatever he wants, but he's like, what? He hasn't paid a hefty price? And so essentially my youngest runs out weeping down to the house. He's a pretty emotional kid. And I remember that just like, wow, that's just not nice. I'm sorry. So I don't know. I guess the moral of this story, where I went with this whole concept today, and I apologize, it probably got a little bit out there, but it's really, really difficult right now. Relationships are looking to reconnect. I know we have to be going down the path of reconnection and understanding and communication and finding some common ground. Like I've always said, I never get so angry or upset or irritated about something that I can never forgive, that we can never move on, into like, hey, let's move forward into a new space. Let's acknowledge what happened. I've gotten really good at that. You really have to do that to stay sane in life. But when it happens 3, 4, 5 times and you move through it and, you come to the other side, how many times can you just take that abuse? So I don't know. Maybe we've achieved this new norm of sorts. I don't know. But this is what I do know. We're all humans. We're all living in the same area or on the same plot of land, breathing the same air, on the same body of water, wherever we're at. We all require the same things: food, water, air, shelter, those things. It's not going to pay off continuing to find reasons to make us different. It isn't. I promise you it isn't. So let's just keep working on that. Let's find a reason to talk. That's what this is going to do. If I can keep this alive, if I can keep this going, if I can get more people to start having conversations, if I can help solve one problem of just putting a couple of pieces back together to start, that's all we need. There's been a lot of fraud, a lot of lies, a lot of gaslighting, a lot of bad behavior, a lot of people doing some horrible stuff and blaming it on someone else. We got to stop blaming. If you find yourself blaming somebody else for something bad that happened to you, now look, I've done a lot of that recently. There have been a lot of bad things that have happened to me that I don't feel like I deserve. I don't. But I need to recognize what happened and why so I can avoid them next time. And I hope to help some other people figure that out. How do you identify those horrible, toxic people in your life that are there for a reason, or they have an agenda or a goal, whatever that is? It's way better when we just
smile, enjoy ourselves, think about happy thoughts. Give it a try. I don't know.
Do you ever wonder why the high school class